Glossary of Literary Terms. The Glossary of Literary Terms is a list of definitions of terms and concepts used in the discussion, classification, analysis and criticism of all types of literature such as poetry, novels, and picture books, as well as of grammar, syntax, and language techniques. In today's video, we have brought you a list of some popular literary terms, their explanations and examples. Stick to this channel and get these uncommon updates. Allegory. An allegory is a literary work in which nearly all of the characters, events, settings, and other literal elements of the story have a second and symbolic meaning. In most cases, allegories advance a very clear moral lesson. George Orwell's Animal Farm is an allegory in which the barnyard animals who overthrow the farmer and take over the farm represent the Russian Revolution and its aftermath. Allusion. An allusion is an indirect reference to something outside the text, usually a person, place, thing, or idea that is generally familiar to the intended audience. Allusion often refer to historical events or people, other works of literature, classic, mythology, or popular culture. The following lines from Romeo and Juliet contain an allusion to Aurora, the Roman goddess of the dawn. It reads, "But earl Saracen as the all-cheering sun should in the farthest east begin to draw the shady curtain to Aurora's bed." Antagonist. Antagonist is a character or force in a story that opposes or works against the goals of the protagonist. In Shakespeare's Othello, the villainous Lajo served as the antagonist, abusing Othello's trust in order to sabotage his marriage. Black humor. Black humor is a writing that places grotesque elements side by side with humorous ones in an attempt to shock the reader, forcing him or her to laugh at the horrifying reality of a disordered world. Joseph Heller's novel Catch-22 is considered a superb example of the use of black humor. Other well-known authors who use black humor include Kurt Vonnegut, Edward Albee, Eugene Ionesco, Harold Pinter. Black humor is also known as black comedy. Climax. Climax is the point of the highest tension in a story, in which the main conflict is first and ultimately resolved. In William Golding's Lord of the Flies, the climax occurs after Ralph and Piggy demand that Jack returns Piggy's stolen glasses. When Jack's tribe kills Piggy and forces Ralph to flee into the jungle, it becomes clear that Jack has triumphed over Ralph in their struggle for supremacy on the island. Conflict. Conflict is the central struggle that drives the plot of a story, or any struggle between opposing forces in a story. Literary scholars often classify conflicts as internal, in which a character struggles with some internal dilemma, or external, in which a character struggles against outside forces like nature or the characters or supernatural forces. In William Golding's Lord of the Flies, the main conflict pits the protagonist Ralph against the antagonist Jack. Throughout the story, the two boys compete to become the dominant leader of the boys stranded on the island, with Ralph embodying the rules and order of civilization and Jack the opposing tendency toward terror and violence. Double entendre. Double entendre is a figure of speech with two possible interpretations, one of which is usually ironic or lewd. In Romeo and Juliet, Mercutio uses a double entendre to tell the nurse that it is noon. It reads, "'Tis no less I tell you, for the body hand of the dial is now upon the prick of noon." The line literally means that the hand of the clock is pointing toward the prick, that is mark of the moon, but it can also be read as a reference to one's hand being placed on a prick, that is penis. Epilogue. An epilogue is a concluding section or speech at the end of a literary work, often used to provide closure. Shakespeare's play often concludes with an epilogue in which one of the characters delivers a speech that neatly sums up the outcome of the play's events. For example, at the conclusion of The Tempest, Prospero, the vengeful protagonist, delivers a speech in which he directly addresses the audience, asks them to pardon him for his faults and release him from the stage with their applause. Exposition. Exposition is the introduction of background information necessary for the reader or audience to make sense of a story. In most cases, the exposition occurs near the beginning of a story, revealing basic details about the setting and characters who will drive the action. Following action. The following action is the part of a story's plot that immediately follows the climax and moves the story towards its resolution. The following action of Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart occurs after the climax. That is when Okonkwo realizes that his killing of the district commissioner's messenger has failed to inspire his fellow tribesmen to unite against the white colonizers. Utterly defeated, Okonkwo hangs himself, bringing his tragic story to the end. Juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is the placement of two different ideas, characters, or action close together in relation to each other, usually to draw attention to contrasting traits. In Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen uses juxtaposition to contrast Elizabeth Bennet with the more proper and pretentious women in the novel. In Chapter 7, Elizabeth walks 3 miles in bad weather to visit her sick sister. When Elizabeth arrives soaked and muddy at Nether Park Field, she is met by Miss Bingley and Miss Hurst, 2 proper ladies who find the idea of the lady walking alone in such a bad weather incredible and improper. Malapropism. Malapropism is a misuse or mispronunciation of a word or phrase, often in the form of a word being replaced with a similar sounding word, may be unintentional or intentional, usually for a comic effect. The word malapropism comes from Miss Malaprop, a character in Richard Brinsley's 1775 play entitled The Rival. Miss Malaprop often speaks in malapropism, using phrases like pineapple of politeness in place of pinnacle of politeness, and talking about scientific experiment done in the lavatory instead of laboratory. Motif. Motif is a technique of using repetition of an idea, event, image, phrase, or symbol throughout literary work to illuminate and expand the major theme. In William Golden's Lord of the Flies, the narrator frequently describes the oppressive heat of the island at various points throughout the story. The motif establishes a connection between the island's hostile environment and the physical and psychological oppression of the boys stranded there. Narrator. The narrator is the speaker telling the story in a narrative work of literature. Parody. In literature, an imitation of another literary work that mocks, critiques, or makes light of the original is called parody. For Whom the Southern Bells Tolls by Christopher Durand is a one-act parody of the glass menagerie, caricaturing the overbearing Southern mother and exaggerating the idiosyncrasy of the other three characters. Plot: the sequence of major events of a narrative or dramatic work, usually consisting of 5 basic elements, namely exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution, is commonly known as the plot. The plot of most romantic comedies can succinctly described as: two people meet, they fall in love, they experience some challenge and break up, they cross paths again, they resolve their problem and reunite. Prologue: an introductory section of a piece of literature, especially of plays that precede the inciting action of the story, is known as the prologue. The prologue is often designed to explain background of universal context to the audience so they better understand the story that follows. In the prologue of Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie, Tom Wingfield, the protagonist, addresses the audience directly and explains his role in the play. According to Tom, "I am the narrator of the play and also a character in it. The other characters are my mother, Amanda, my sister, Laura, and a gentleman caller who appears in the final scenes." Resolution: resolution is the final action in a play or story, sometimes called the denouement, which generally resolves any outstanding conflict and brings the plot to its conclusion. In Hamlet, the resolution is marked by Fortinbras arriving on the scene to lay his claim to Denmark, only to discover that the entire Danish royal family is already dead. Horatio doubtfully reports the tragic tale of their downfall, and Fortinbras orders that Hamlet's body be removed and buried, bringing the story to a close. Satire: satire is a literary style that ridicules human vice or folly, often through humor, irony, or sarcasm. In a short story, A Telephone Call, Dorothy Parker uses biting satire to mock the folly of romantic love, amplifying the pathetic desperation of a poor heroine as she waits for a phone call from a potential suitor. Synopsis: a synopsis is a brief summary that gives audience the idea of what a composition is about. It provides an overview of the storyline or main points and other defining factors of the work, which may include style, genre, persons, or characters of note, setting, and so on. Syntax: the way in which words are arranged in order to create meaning is known as syntax. In English, sentences typically follow a basic syntax of subject plus verb plus object. Adding other elements like a complement or indirect object or inverting the word other can create nuance or change the meaning. In the Star Wars films, for example, Yoda's syntax often follows an inverted structure: object plus subject plus the verb. Example: powerful you have become, the dark side I sense in you. Voice: the voice is the distinctive style of expression of an author, narrator, speaker, or character, which is established by diction, point of view, tone, and other literary devices. Each writer makes countless choices, both conscious and unconscious, that contribute to their unique voice. Consider just a few of the many ways to say goodbye and how each option shapes the voice of the speaker. Goodbye, bye-bye, until we meet again. May God go with you. See you in the flip side. Parting in such sweet sorrow. Smell ya later. Verisimilitude. Verisimilitude simply means the quality of resembling reality, and a work of art or any part of work of art has verisimilitude if it seems believably realistic. A verisimilitudinous story has details, subjects, and characters that seem similar or true to real life. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're watching us from, please, if this video has actually piqued your interest, please kindly share it on all social media platforms. And do not forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so. See you in the next episode. I'm out. Bye.